Well, I just completely warped and destroyed the roof on this chopped 1953 Chevy truck cab from welding it. And in today's video, we are going to attempt to fix this. And if you're watching this video, that means we successfully fixed this damage. I don't know if you can see that, but it is warped. I did everything wrong that I possibly could to make this roof warp even worse so that we have more entertainment value for you. All along here, we got low, 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 low. Kind of a skateboard ramp right in the middle. Right here. Nice little jump there. And then we come over here. And low. This side's really bad. Well, it's hard to determine which side's worse, but I wish the camera would pick it up better, but I can assure you this roof is a huge, huge mess. And when I sight across the middle here, I can see that it's been affected all the way up, you know, well into this area. So we have literally destroyed this roof from welding. I wish the damage would show up better on camera, but we're going to take you on a little trip back in time to when I welded this, and then we'll jump back into the present and start fixing it. Oh no. Might be warped just a little bit. Well, you know you're on the right track when it looks like your roof is gonna hold water. Yeah. At least it kind of did it somewhat consistently. That is, well, dang camera won't even pick it up. Man, I wrecked something and the camera won't even show it. That's disappointing. I want people to see what I'm doing here, you know? Woo. So this seam here was actually the easy one. This one is going to be a lot more challenging because this one I did off the truck. I fitted on the bench, so it fit a lot better, so it was easier to weld. But this side, I kind of just, I don't know, kind of hacked it on the truck, and so I didn't really get the gap very good. You can see there's a ferocious gap here, and this other side is really bad. Like that's really, this area here I already kind of welded. I don't remember why, but I did, maybe just to hold it. And yeah, bad gap all the way through here. So I might weld the easy to weld parts first and then come back and weld these big gaps, because I'm probably going to have to use thicker filler wire than this 030 to get that welded up. Well, I could probably use this, but it's just I'm gonna have to sit there and add a bunch more heat. And I mean, we've already destroyed this roof at this point, so I guess what's the difference? But we'll see. I don't really have a plan. But, you know, we've already made a mess of it, so rather than stop and reevaluate, we're just going to continue making a mess of it. Holy, not happy. Holy crap. Oh, easy now. Easy now. Not done destroying you yet. And we are back in the present, and I am really regretting my decision to intentionally destroy this roof to entertain you folks. But the time has come to begin repairing it. Exciting moment there. We've already got our first of many oil cans. What a treat. Oil can number 2. So because the majority of the roof turned into a massive valley of shame, I didn't want to immediately switch over to just stretching out the weld with a hammer and dolly, because I find if you try stretching it, you know, with hand tools and it's like sunk in super far, it'll stretch, but like the metal will stay kind of down. Like I just don't have the strength in my little spaghetti arms to force it up that much and stretch it at the same time. So in order to get it moving in the right direction, I'm using this hammer. It's made of some kind of alien plastic. It's made by that Carl character over at Make It Custom. And it's actually a really nice hammer. It's intended for doing tuck shrinks on sheet metal. You hammer a little pucker in and then hammer it flat with this, and it does a beautiful job with that. But I'm a hack and I can't have nice tools because they just end up getting used for the wrong purpose. So that's what we're using here. We're using this to kind of bump it up without doing damage with like a heavy, you know, ball peen or claw hammer or some kind of steel faced hammer. This is just a little bit more gentle, but at least gets the metal moving where we want it. And again, this is the reason I can't have nice tools like this, because they just end up getting abused. All right, well, I'm about half an hour into beating the snot out of this. And at this stage, like, I'm not happy with it, but I think we got the majority of the damage from the actual welding out. Like, there's still some weirdness and whatever. Like, it's not, certainly not done, but like, that's a massive improvement over where we were a short while ago. And, you know, this roof is completely tightened up now. There's no oil canny or soft spots. But when I feel it, you know, we still got a lot of work to do. I'm not happy with it yet. What's the strategy now, I guess, is the strategy is just to keep going. There's kind of a spot here I don't really like that's starting to develop here, a bit of a problem area. So I'm going to hit this with a shrinking disc and possibly a couple other areas, and then we'll just keep bumping and banging and hitting it and smacking it and whatever else we got to do. I don't really have a strategy. We're just going to do a little of this and a little of that, and the metal will kind of tell us what needs to happen. The thing that we're going to be fighting for the next long while isn't the damage from the welding. It's just the fact that we cut and widened this roof. So now I'm having to re-transition this widened roof together so that it actually flows together and looks proper. And that's where the real work is going to come in. I suspect I'm going to have to be working a pretty substantially larger area of this roof to get everything where I'm going to be happy with it. All right, before we get into the next segment, I just wanted to take a brief moment to talk about safety. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, well, you've been bishing and bashing and planishing and running the shrinking disc over this, and it looks rough, but it's actually starting to resemble a roof. Like, I'm not totally disgusted by what we've done here, so that's not too bad. But now that we got it kind of looking like a roof again, I'm thinking it's time to destroy it again. I'm going to weld up all these little cleco holes in the roof. Reason I didn't do that before is I just wanted to focus on the main seam here. I didn't want to start creating other heat hotspots in the panel that were going to give us trouble. So now that we kind of know that this is like roughed in, we can go back and weld these, kind of dolly those out, and then just continue trying to iron out this disgusting mess. So I've had a few folks in the comments there asking why I'm not quenching when I use the shrinking disc. And now I just want to go on the record here that I only know enough about these to be dangerous. I'm not an expert by any means. I haven't been using one for very long, and so I'm just playing around with it and finding what works best for me. And what works for me might not work for somebody else, and that's okay. It's okay. Yep. So, why do I not quench? Well, when I first started using this, I was quenching, and because that's what everybody says to do. And then I found I wasn't really getting the results that I was hoping for. And so I started thinking, like with my brain, and I figured that there's a couple reasons why I maybe shouldn't be quenching. So I stopped quenching, and as soon as I did that, suddenly this started working better for me. So a car body is just made of mild cold rolled steel, and cold rolled mild steel is just a bunch of little molecules. If you looked at it under a microscope, that's what you would see. And the thing with molecules is they're kind of idiots. Like, They'll only do what you tell them to do. So let's pretend that I'm a molecule. Now, when we take the shrinking disc, we're adding heat into the metal. And when we add heat to the metal, like we heat ourselves up, I'm a molecule, so I'm heating myself up. And what happens, now I'm hot, and so start moving around. Like I panic because I'm getting warm. So, you know, gotta stay active, right? And as the metal cools, they slowly slow down again until they're back in their happy spot. Now, if we start trying to quench it and force cool it, well, molecules are running around, suddenly you quench it, and they're frozen in time. And what happens is, well, the molecules get shocked and frozen, the metal starts to get harder. And the harder the metal gets, the harder it is to work, the less effective more passes with the shrinking disc and more hammer and dolly. It gets harder to hammer and dolly. That's kind of the first reason why I stopped quenching, is because, well, I don't really want that. I want the metal to go back to, you know, as close as to how it was before I started mucking about with it. So letting it cool naturally is, you know, seems to work better, and it's better for the metal, and just, you know, one less unnecessary step. The other thing is, when you do a traditional shrink, like with a torch, well, you're only really shrinking like a dime-sized area at a time, so it's very localized. And what you do is you heat it up with a torch, the metal will rise up, and you put your dolly in and you smack it and force the metal back into itself, and then you quench it, and that kind of gets everything back to where it should be. But with a shrinking disc, you're shrinking a large area. You know, it's a big, pretty decent sized disc, like that. So we're able to work a much larger area, which is kind of a benefit. And it's a bit slower process, so you kind of build up to it, rather than do, like, a torch shrink is very aggressive, whereas this is much less aggressive, which is kind of beneficial in a way. So if I'm shrinking a large area and then I start spraying water on it, well, it's really hard to evenly quench that area. So like one area might get quenched, like say, like this molecule over here, well, it's frozen. Then we got a molecule over here and it's still running around. So we end up with unevenness in the panel, and this is actually, I guess, the main reason why I stopped quenching, is because what I was finding is I'd run the shrinking disc over a large area and then I would quench it, and I get waves in the panel, and really that's because, well, it's hard to evenly quench that large area all at once, whereas if I let it naturally cool, it just kind of does its own thing, and it's a lot happier. Everybody's happier. I'm happier, the metal's happier, the shrinking disc is happier, the water's happier because it's not getting wasted on a panel, and you know, we don't have water dripping everywhere. We don't have to wipe off the water afterwards. So those are the two reasons why I don't quench. I'm finding I get better results. Your results may vary. Everybody has a different process, but that's just my theory. All right, so I just sprayed some cheap paint on here as a guide coat, and I'm sanding across it with 80 grit on a sanding block, and just continuing to hammer and dolly, bump up the highs and lows, and smash the metal around and do whatever needs to happen. And after a few sessions of this, I did some more shrinking disc and then some more hammer and dollying. And when I was finally kind of fairly satisfied with where I was at, I switched over to using a body file. And the body file is kind of like the final judge, jury, and executioner. And the idea is to kind of scratch up the surface with it, and it'll give you a 100% accurate kind of reading of where the panel is at. It's old school and not done very much anymore, but I enjoy it, so that's what I do. So the most popular request is people always want to know what it looks like on the inside. And there you go. I spend zero effort on the inside because it cannot be seen. If there's any big globs, I just quickly grind off the globularness. Other than that, quick sand over it, and that's all I do. Nice thing about a TIG weld is you don't really have to grind anything on the inside because the planishing process crushes it out flat. There's no chunks sticking out for the most part. So doing anything more to it is kind of a waste of time. The only time where what's on the inside matters is on Riddler cars or Pebble Beach cars, and we are not doing either of those. I'll tell you right now, if you're trying to build a Pebble Beach car, this definitely is not the channel for you. This is the crude get it done channel. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to sand the whole thing, like minimal effort as possible. Then I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to take some trim clad and I'm going to glorp a bunch of trim clad over it. And then it's getting sound deadener over top of that. Then there's a giant steel inner panel that welds over top and covers, I think, most of this. And then it's getting a headliner on top of that. So whether it's a roof or a door or fender or whatever, I don't spend any time at all on the inside. And if I ever catch anybody looking that close at my car, I'll punch them right in the eye. So here's the completed repair. This is not a metal finish repair, but it is in bare metal and I am finished with it. Overall, I'm not completely disgusted with how it turned out. It actually went a lot better than I thought it was going to. You'll notice over here, I still have not done any finishing work, which we probably should have done to begin with, but this is a patch that we welded in here when I lengthened the roof. And I was working on it off camera a while ago, and I can only do so much of this sheet metal work before I get sick of it. So I just put it off. We'll have to go and finish this up shortly. I could spend the rest of my life chasing highs and lows on this roof and still not be happy with it. But at this stage, you know, it's not perfect, but it's close enough where, you know, the shape is there and I can look at it without wanting to throw up. And more importantly, we can move on to the next step on this project. I'd rather move forward with the project than worry about trying to make it perfect, especially considering what we started with and considering what we're trying to build. Now this seam that we welded through the middle here, this was over 7 feet of weld across here. But for those of you who are new here, we also welded all through here, down the side here, down the side here, so, and also through the back. So if you add all that up, there's well over 10 feet of welding on this roof itself. So to do that much welding on a fairly soft low crown panel like this and have it not be ruined beyond recognition, I think I'm okay with how it turned out. And you know, I'm the only one who has to decide when it's good enough, because I'm the guy who owns this truck, unfortunately. Not only has over 10 feet of welding gone into this roof, but this entire back area of the roof was bashed in and smashed and full of dents when we got it. Before we welded it, we worked out all the dents, and then we cut it apart and started trying to piece it back together. And it's been a long process, and I really thought this seam here was what I was dreading the most, and I really thought we were gonna be spending more time on it, but you know, it went together okay. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how long it takes. I was prepared to spend however long it took to get it to where it wasn't ruined. Once in a while you get lucky, and the stuff that you think is going to be a pain ends up going really well. Just do a quick sweep across the weld seam here for you. If we get up close, we can still see a few imperfections in the weld. This is where we had some misalignment, and there's a little bit of undercutting. I'm not a professional TIG welder by any means. I am self-taught, and whatever. It's there you go. There's some more undercutting there. Again, this seam here. This is the seam where we had a pretty big gap, and I was actually able to weld it with the 030 MIG wire, which I was surprised. I didn't think I'd be able to, but we got through it. But we did end up with a little undercutting, but I really don't care. I gotta say, using the shrinking disc on this kind of stuff while it's not the be all end all, you know, it doesn't magically solve problems, it certainly makes this kind of process a whole lot easier. I'm also glad that I just went for it and decided to do a continuous pass. Originally, I was going to hammer weld this to kind of control the heat as I went through it. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think just doing the one pass was a lot more efficient. Like I said, everybody's afraid of warping stuff, but I ain't no coward. You know, I may be a filthy degenerate, a hack, a hoarder, a coward, and a pterodactyl, but I am definitely not a communist. Almost forgot to do an oil can update here. The roof is nice and tight, even though it's a long ways off from being perfect. You know, this will body work out very nicely for us, I think. I hope, anyways. You know, it's not going to pop in and out, any of that nonsense. So there's your oil can update. The trick or secret with any of this work is not skill, but just patience and repetition. In the footage, you probably saw me, I'd do a little bit of hammering, and then I'd stop and I'd check. And what you want to do is you want to feel the surface, you want to stand back and look at it and make sure there's nothing weird going on, because on these flat panels like this roof here, it does not take much to, you know, end up with a weird spot. So it's really a game of just small increments. Small increments are better than trying to do a big, massive, dramatic thing to this, because, you know, a couple of, you know, heavy hammer hits in the middle of this and you end up with a massive problem that's going to take hours to fix. So anything is fixable, but it's just, you don't want to make more work for yourself. In addition to, you know, feel and sight, I'm actually using all 9 of my senses to figure out when this roof is kind of in the zone. The final test, and the most important, I believe, is actually the taste test. So for the taste test, what I do is I just take my finger and just taste it real quick. Now what I'm looking for in the taste test is kind of a rusty flavor with, you know, a small dose of lead paint remnants, as well as a hint of cinnamon. That's kind of when you know that this panel is probably, you know, as far as you want to take it. Anyways, thanks for watching me destroy this chicken truck roof, and we'll be back again soon with more chicken truck adventures.